The house exhaled silence, its walls heavy with secrets that pressed against my skin. I was in my early 20s, tethered to a small home on the city's rural edge, sharing it with 3 strangers who'd become roommates by chance. We weren't close, just college graduates scraping by, splitting rent to afford this creaking refuge where fields stretched into darkness. For 9 months it was bearable, shared meals, fleeting laughs, the hum of normalcy. But then, like a thread snapping in the night, it all unraveled. It started when 2 of the guys packed up and left. No warning, just a quick goodbye and boxes hauled out in a single weekend. Suddenly it was just me and KJ. He was the quiet one, the guy who'd slip in and out like a ghost, always working odd hours or vanishing until dawn. I barely knew him, his name, his face, and the fact that he never joined us for drinks. Have you ever lived with someone who feels like a stranger, yet their presence lingers like a weight on your chest? With just the 2 of us, the house felt bigger, emptier, the silence heavier. The rent doubled, a burden we couldn't sustain, so we agreed. 3 months until the lease ended, then we'd part ways. At first, I didn't mind the solitude. On my days off, I'd sprawl across the couch, the TV's hum filling the void where laughter used to be. But KJ's absence was unsettling. He worked mornings, part-time, yet he was never home. Where did he go? Friends, I assumed, or maybe a girlfriend he never mentioned. The house became my domain, but it felt wrong, like I was trespassing in someone else's dream. Close your eyes and picture it. A house too quiet, where every sound feels like an intrusion. I started noticing things. Dishes I didn't touch, a door left ajar, the faint smell of cigarette smoke when neither of us smoked. One night I stayed up later than usual, lost in a book, the clock ticking past midnight. Headlights sliced through my window, gravel crunching under tires. KJ was home. Have you ever felt a chill when someone enters a room, like the air itself recoils? I heard the front door ease open, then footsteps, fast, urgent, racing down the hallway. Curiosity tugged at me, a need to break the awkward distance between us. I opened my bedroom door, ready to say something casual, but the hallway was dark, and KJ was already at his room. He jumped when he saw me, his eyes wide, glinting in the faint light like a cornered animal. "What's up, KJ?" I said, my voice too loud in the stillness. "Just seeing how you're doing." He didn't move. His silhouette loomed, rigid, those eyes locked on mine. Feel that moment, the way time slows when fear creeps in. "I'm good," he muttered, his voice flat, hollow. Silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating. I nodded, retreating to my room, my heart thudding. Why was he so startled? Why rush to his room like he was hiding something? I tried to shake it off, but the unease clung to me like damp clothes. After a few minutes, I cracked my door open, tiptoeing toward his room. I didn't want to spy, but I needed to know. As I passed his door, I heard it. Frantic movement, drawers yanked open, objects shuffled in a chaotic rush. I froze, my breath shallow, listening to the madness unfold. Then, abruptly, it stopped. The silence was worse, like the house itself was holding its breath. Before I could move, his door swung open. KJ stood there, those same wide eyes boring into me. Picture it, a face you barely know, transformed into something primal, unreadable. I stammered, "Just heading to the kitchen. Want anything?" He shook his head, his gaze never wavering, and closed the door. My legs carried me to the kitchen, but my mind was racing. What was he doing? Why did he look at me like that? I poured a glass of water I didn't drink, staring at the dark hallway, half expecting him to emerge again. That night, sleep didn't come. I lay awake, every creak of the house amplifying my dread. Over the next few days, I became hyper-aware of KJ. I'd stay up waiting for his car to pull in, unable to relax until I knew he was in his room. His behavior grew stranger, his eyes, once just tired, now restless, darting like he was hunted. He barely spoke, his words clipped, his movements hurried. Have you ever watched someone unravel, each day peeling back a layer of normalcy until something raw and dangerous remains? I started locking my door, a habit I'd never needed before. The house, once a refuge, felt like a trap, its walls closing in with every passing night. Then came the night that broke me. I was in bed, the world outside cloaked in darkness, when a knock came at my door. Soft, deliberate, it jolted me upright. Feel your heart stop, the way a single sound can rewrite reality. I opened the door, and there was KJ, his face a mask of unease, a forced half-smile twisting his lips. Just got home, he said, his voice too calm. Think I dropped my wallet in the driveway. Got a flashlight? Can you help? It was odd. He'd never asked for anything, never sought me out. But I thought maybe this was a chance to ease the tension, to see the human in him again. I grabbed a flashlight and followed him outside. The gravel crunched under our feet, the night air cold and sharp. KJ made small talk, asking about work, his voice unnaturally light. Listen to that dissonance, the way normal words can mask something sinister. I scanned the ground, the flashlight's beam cutting through the dark, but something felt off. His car was parked far down the driveway, almost at the road, for no reason. We walked further, the house receding behind us, and I realized we were nearing the woods. Why's your car so far out? I asked, my voice tight. He didn't answer, just kept walking, leading me away from the driveway toward the trees. My stomach twisted. What are we doing, KJ? I pressed, stopping in my tracks. He turned, his smile gone, his eyes glinting with something dark, angry. See it now. A man you thought you knew, standing at the edge of a forest, his true self laid bare. I went for a walk earlier, he said, his words slow, deliberate. Might have dropped it out here. I didn't believe him. The woods loomed, their shadows swallowing the light. He urged me forward, his voice insistent, but every instinct screamed to run. You take the flashlight, I said, thrusting it at him. I'm heading back, got work tomorrow. I turned, walking fast, my pulse hammering. I glanced back once, twice, and saw him standing there, motionless, watching me. I didn't sleep that night. I packed my bags, every sound from the house a threat. KJ never returned. By morning, I loaded my car and left, the house shrinking in my rearview mirror. Feel that relief, tainted by the unknown, the questions that linger like ghosts. Years later, I still don't know what KJ was planning in those woods, but the memory of his eyes, that smile, haunts me. Some doors once opened, never closed. The house was too quiet that night, its silence a blade pressed against my skin. I shared that old, sagging place with Jason, my college roommate, just beyond the campus where we'd carved out our early 20s. We weren't close, not the kind of friends who'd share secrets or stay up late confessing dreams. Our life together was practical, a deal struck to split rent on a house we could barely afford. Its walls were thin, scarred by years, the floorboards warped and sighing under every step. The air carried a faint dampness, like the ghost of rain trapped inside. For 2 years it was home, a fragile cocoon of routine and familiarity. Stop. Feel the weight of that stillness, heavy as a held breath. June arrived, thick with heat, the sunlight pooling in lazy patches across the kitchen floor. Dust hung in the beams, a quiet dance I'd grown to love. Jason and I moved through our days like clockwork. Work, meals, the soft glow of the TV. At night, life felt safe, a rhythm I could trust. But beneath it all, something stirred. The house had secrets, its wooden heart beating with a pulse I couldn't hear. Sink into that moment, where safety frays at the edges. Those floorboards, once charming in their complaints, began to speak. At first it was subtle, a soft groan in the dark, a whisper of movement. I didn't know then that they were warning me, singing of a stranger who'd slipped into our lives. By the time I understood, the house was no longer ours. It belonged to him. The night it began, I came home late, my bones aching from a long shift. Jason and I traded small talk in the dim glow of the living room, his laughter soft against the hum of the fridge. We parted ways, retreating to our rooms, the house settling into silence. Close your eyes now. Imagine the stillness of a house at rest, every sound amplified in the dark. I drifted into sleep, cradled by the familiar creaks of the old place. But at 3 a.m., something tore me awake. A slow, deliberate creak echoed from the hallway like footsteps testing the floor's patience. My breath caught, eyes straining against the darkness. The sound moved, steady and unhurried, toward the living room. I pictured Jason, maybe grabbing a glass of water, his shadow passing under my door. Listen to that sound. Feel it crawl up your spine. I rolled over, the clock's red glow mocking my unease. I told myself it was nothing, just the house breathing, and sank back into sleep. Morning came too soon, my alarm a cruel jolt. I rushed to get ready, coffee burning my tongue, when Jason's door creaked open. He looked haggard, eyes shadowed. "What were you doing last night?" he asked, voice low. "Wandering around at 3 a.m.? I froze, mug halfway to my lips. "Me? I thought that was you." His frown deepened, and we stood there, caught in a loop of confusion. Feel that moment when trust in your reality begins to fray. Neither of us had an answer. I brushed it off. Old houses creak, don't they? And left for work. The memory of those footsteps lingering like a half-forgotten dream. That morning's conversation with Jason haunted me all day. At work, the hum of the office couldn't drown out the echo of those floorboards. The way Jason's voice had carried a flicker of doubt. Have you ever felt the ground shift beneath you, your certainty crumbling? By evening, I was back home, the house empty with Jason at work. The silence felt heavier now, the air thick with questions. I retreated to my room, the glow of my laptop, a feeble shield against the creeping unease. Sink into that feeling, the way a familiar space can turn alien. I tried to lose myself in routine, scrolling, snacking, anything to keep the night at bay. But as midnight approached, I climbed into bed, the darkness pressing against my eyelids. And then, like a cruel replay, it came again. The creaking. Slow, deliberate. Each step a pulse in the quiet. My heart raced, every nerve straining to map the sound. It moved through the hallway, pausing at the living room's edge. Hold your breath, feel the weight of that silence. I sat up, ears burning, waiting for more. But after 30 seconds of nothing, I forced myself to act. My door opened with a soft groan, the hallway a tunnel of shadows. The living room was empty, moonlight pooling on the floor. No Jason, no explanation. Stand there with me in that empty space where answers should be but aren't. I retreated, locking my door, telling myself it was the wind, the house, anything but what my gut screamed. Sleep came fitfully, the creaking a ghost in my dreams. The next morning I told Jason about the creaking, my voice unsteady. He shrugged, his eyes distant, offering no theories. Have you ever shared a fear only to feel more alone? He was off work that day while I dragged myself to my shift, the house's secrets gnawing at me. By 11 p.m., I was back, exhausted, but wired. As I walked down the hallway, I caught a glimpse of Jason in his room, sitting on his bed, motionless. "What's up?" I called, passing by. No answer. Feel that chill when someone you know becomes a stranger. I brushed it off. Maybe he didn't hear me, and went to my room, changing out of my uniform. But when I passed his door again, heading to the kitchen, his light was off. He was still there, a silhouette in the dark, unmoving. "You okay, Jason?" I tried again. Silence. Stand in that doorway where the familiar becomes wrong. Uneasy, I grabbed food and retreated, his silence a weight on my chest. An hour later, I was in bed, the house too quiet. Then it came, the creaking, right outside, my door. My eyes snapped to the gap beneath where a shadow flickered. Freeze with me, feel the dread coil in your gut. My phone glowed in the dark as I texted Jason, asking if he was walking around. Minutes dragged by. His reply, a question mark, then, "What do you mean? I'm not home." Feel your blood turn to ice, your world tilting. My pulse roared, eyes locked on the door. I stumbled into the hallway, heart hammering. Jason's shutter was open, a void of black. I peered inside, and there he stood. A man, tall, bearded, not Jason. Run with me now as terror takes hold. Before that night, Jason's odd behavior had already set my nerves on edge. Have you ever watched someone you know slip into a stranger's skin? His silence in the dark, his refusal to answer, felt like a betrayal of the trust we'd built. I'd replayed our years together, searching for clues. Late night talks over cheap beer, his quiet laugh, the way he'd leave dishes in the sink. But now those memories felt tainted, as if the Jason I knew was a mask. Sink into that doubt, where every memory is suspect. I'd tried to rationalize his behavior, stress, maybe, or exhaustion, but the creaking, the shadow under my door shattered that fragile logic. Feel the weight of that moment when you can't trust your own eyes. I stood in the hallway, the house a labyrinth of shadows, my breath shallow. The open door to Jason's room was a maw, daring me to look. I inched forward, my phone's light trembling in my hand. The man's silhouette loomed, his presence a violation of everything safe. Stand there, where fear becomes a living thing. I didn't think. I ran. The front door slammed behind me, the night air biting my skin. Across the street, I dialed 911, my voice shaking as I spilled the story. The police came, their flashlights slicing through the dark. But the man was gone, the house empty, save for a window slightly ajar, its lock undone but undisturbed. Feel the emptiness, where answers should be. They found no footprints, no fingerprints, nothing to prove he'd been there. But I knew. He'd been there, waiting. His purpose a mystery that chilled me deeper than the night. That final night rewrote my understanding of safety. Have you ever realized in one heartbeat that your home is a lie? The man in Jason's room wasn't just an intruder. He was a predator, patient, calculating. His bearded face, caught in the dim light, burned into my memory, a nightmare made flesh. See him now, standing in the dark, his eyes locked on yours. I didn't sleep that night or the next. The police's words, nothing stolen, no forced entry, did little to ease the terror. They suggested he'd been there before. The creaking, floorboards his footsteps night after night. Feel that violation, your sanctuary defiled. I packed a bag, stayed with a friend, the house abandoned. Jason was shaken, his voice cracking as we spoke. He'd been out that night visiting a friend, a stroke of luck that spared him. We pieced it together. The intruder had chosen that day, knowing Jason was usually home alone. Imagine that planning, that patience, waiting for the perfect moment. The thought made my skin crawl. Why Jason? Why sit on his bed, silent, waiting? Sink into that question, where every answer is worse than the last. The house felt cursed now, its creaks no longer, charming but sinister. I saw the intruder in every shadow, heard his steps in every quiet moment. Close your eyes, hear the floorboards sing their warning. We never returned, the lease broken, our lives scattered. But the fear lingered, a guest that never left. I'd wake at 3 a.m., heart racing, certain I heard that creak again, certain he was still out there, watching. Years later, the creaking floorboards still haunt me. Have you ever carried a fear so deep it becomes part of you? I've moved cities, changed jobs, built a new life, but that night clings to me, a shadow I can't shake. The house is gone, sold to someone unaware of its secrets, but I see it in my dreams. The warped floors, the flickering lights, the man in Jason's room. Step back into that house, feel its walls close in. I've tried to understand him, who he was, what he wanted. The police had no answers, no record of him, no trace. But I know he wasn't a ghost. He was real, his presence a stain on my reality. Feel that truth, cold and sharp, cutting through your denial. Jason and I drifted apart, the weight of that night too heavy for our fragile bond. He's out there somewhere, maybe carrying the same scars. I wonder if he hears the creaking too. Imagine him, alone, listening for that sound. The worst part isn't the fear, it's the questions. Why was he there night after night? What did he plan for Jason alone in that house? Sink into that unknown, where the mind paints horrors worse than reality. I lock my doors now, check my windows, sleep with a light on, but no lock can keep out the memory of that man, standing in the dark, waiting. Hear the creaking now, soft and slow, calling you back. Some nights, I swear I feel him watching, his bearded face just beyond the edge of my vision, the floorboards singing his arrival. In the summer of 2015, I stood alone in my dimly lit apartment, staring at the Craigslist ad glowing on my laptop screen, the cursor blinking like a heartbeat. I needed a roommate, someone to split the rent, to fill the silence of this place. Little did I know the person who answered would unravel the safety I'd taken for granted. Back then, I was 23, fresh out of college, scraping by in a small city apartment. The walls were thin, the floors groaned under every step, and the rent was a constant weight on my shoulders. Craigslist was my only hope, a digital bulletin board for strangers seeking strangers. I typed up an ad, my fingers hesitant, describing the sagging couch in the living room, the kitchen's chipped tiles, the heater that rattled like it was possessed. I hit post, praying for someone normal, someone like me. Days later, my phone buzzed. Hannah. Her email was crisp, almost rehearsed, claiming she was 23, a college student needing a place near campus. On the phone, her voice was soft, measured, with a laugh that felt too perfect when I joked about the apartment's quirks. She sounds nice, I thought, ignoring the faint unease curling in my chest. I invited her to see the place. She arrived at dusk, her silhouette filling the doorway. Taller than I'd expected, her dark hair cascaded over her shoulders, her eyes sharp, scanning every inch of the apartment. She didn't look 23. Her face carried a hardness, a shadow of years beyond her claim. But her smile was warm, her nods, polite as I rambled about shared bills and quiet hours. "It's perfect," she said, her voice low, and we shook hands. Within a week, her boxes lined the second bedroom's walls. Those first days were a blur. Hannah was a ghost, always darting, out for classes or work, our paths crossing only in fleeting moments. I'd catch her in the kitchen, her back to me, her movements too precise, like she was performing for an unseen audience. Her smile never reached her eyes, and her answers to my small talk were clipped, evasive. She's just shy, I told myself. But at night, lying in bed, the apartment's silence felt heavier with her presence. It was the fifth night when the world tilted. I stumbled home from work, the city's pulse fading behind me, rain tapping the windows like impatient fingers. The clock read 10 p.m., my bones aching from a long shift. I wrestled with the sticky lock, the door creaking open into darkness. The air was stale, thick with the ghost of burnt toast. But before I could reach for the light, a sound stopped me cold. Footsteps, frantic, bare feet slapping the hardwood, racing down the hallway. My bag fell, hitting the floor with a dull thud. Then a door slammed, the echo a knife in the quiet. I stepped forward, my pulse loud in my ears, the hallway stretching before me like a tunnel. Hannah's door was closed, a faint glow seeping from beneath. My door, though, I'd locked it that morning, was ajar, the darkness inside a void. Had she been in there? I crept to my room, my breath shallow, and pushed the door open. The bed was unmade, clothes strewn across the chair, my laptop untouched. I checked the drawers, the closet, even the space under the bed, my hands shaking. Nothing was missing, nothing was wrong, yet everything felt wrong. I locked the door, sinking onto the bed, my mind spinning. Maybe she needed something. Maybe she knocked. I turned on the TV, the sitcom's laughter jarring against the apartment's stillness. But my eyes kept drifting to the door, expecting it to move. An hour passed, maybe two, and Hannah's room stayed silent. She's asleep, I told myself, clinging to her claim of early bedtimes. Then, as the TV flickered, I glanced at the door and saw it. A shadow, long and unmoving, stretched under the crack. Someone was there, standing just beyond. My heart lurched. "Hannah," I whispered, my voice trembling. No answer. The shadow didn't stir. "Hannah, are you out there?" I called louder, my throat closing. The silence grew, pressing against me, until the shadow moved, slowly, gliding down the hallway. Her door slammed again, the sound a hammer to my chest. I scrambled to check the lock, my fingers fumbling, and backed away, staring at the handle, half expecting it to turn. What was she doing? The morning brought no answers. Hannah stood in the kitchen pouring coffee with mechanical precision, her face pale under the harsh light. "Morning," she said, her smile a mask. I gripped my mug, forcing the words out. "Last night, did you need something? I heard you in the hallway." Her hand froze, coffee spilling onto the counter. She wiped it away, her smile tightening. "Everything's fine," she said, her voice too bright. "Just getting used to the place." She turned away, the conversation dead. I wanted to press, to demand why she'd stood outside my door, but fear held me back. Don't ruin it, I thought. She's new. She left soon after, her backpack slung over one shoulder, the front door closing softly. I stood in the kitchen, the coffee cold in my hands, her words looping in my mind. Getting used to the place. It didn't fit. That night I returned to a dark apartment, Hannah's room silent, no light under her door. I locked my bedroom door, called a friend on FaceTime, their laughter a lifeline. But the apartment's silence was a weight pressing against my ears. After the call I showered, the steam wrapping around me, the water's hiss a cocoon. But then, a sound, faint, beyond the door. I turned the faucet down, listening. Nothing. Just the drip of water, the vents hum. "You're paranoid," I told myself, stepping out, towel clutched tight. But when I opened the bathroom door, my bedroom door was open. The hallway, a black abyss. My heart stopped. I rushed forward, peering into the hall. Empty. Hannah's room was dark, silent. I slammed my door, locking it, my breath ragged. Had I forgotten to lock it? I was sure I hadn't. The thought of Hannah opening it, standing in my room while I showered, made my skin prickle. I sat on the bed, TV flickering, staring at the door, willing my heart to slow. It's nothing. It has to be nothing. Sleep was a thief that night, slipping away in fragments. I woke at 3 a.m. The room swallowed in darkness, the silence alive, watching. My eyes adjusted, and then I saw it. The door was cracked open, a sliver of hallway darkness leaking through. I'd locked it, I'd checked it. "Hannah?" I whispered, my voice a thread. The silence answered, heavy, suffocating. I sat up, staring at the crack, feeling eyes on me from the void beyond. My hand reached for my phone, its light trembling in my grip. Then, in the corner by my wardrobe, I saw her. Hannah. Her silhouette was sharp, motionless, her face hidden in shadow. Her stare, empty, unblinking, pierced through me. My heart roared, each beat a scream. "Hannah, what are you doing?" I choked out. She didn't answer. She didn't move. Then she stepped forward, her bare feet silent, her movements wrong, too slow, too deliberate. I scrambled back, my back against the headboard, my phone falling. Her face emerged, pale, lifeless. Her eyes black pools, not human. She stepped, again, then ran across the room, out the door, her footsteps thundering. Her door slammed, the sound a blade in the quiet. I grabbed my phone, my keys, and ran. The cold night air biting as I stumbled into the parking lot. My car was a sanctuary, doors locked, my hands shaking as I dialed 911. The police came, their lights slicing the dark, but Hannah was gone. Her room was empty, her belongings erased like she'd never existed. Her phone was a dead end, her name a fiction. I moved out. The apartment a haunted shell. Even now I wake in the night, certain I see a shadow under my door, certain I hear her footsteps waiting. The forest exhaled a cold breath, its shadows curling around me like fingers in the dark. I was 23, back in Vermont for a few weeks to see my family, but my heart was restless, drawn to the wild. Growing up near the Appalachian Mountains, I'd spent countless days hiking their trails, camping under their ancient trees. But this time I craved something different. A forgotten place I'd read about on a forum for explorers of abandoned structures. A lodge, hidden deep in the forest, promised mystery and solitude. Feel that pull, the way a secret beckons you into the unknown. Armed with a tent, supplies, and a hunger for adventure, I set out to find it, unaware that the forest had secrets it wasn't ready to share. The trail wasn't marked, just a faint path carved by curious souls like me. I parked my car on a deserted road, the engine's hum fading into silence as I stepped into the wilderness. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and pine, the ground overgrown with weeds that snagged my boots. Picture it, a path swallowed by nature, each step pulling you deeper into a world that doesn't want you. The hike took nearly 2 hours. My breath steady, but my senses sharp. The forest was alive. Birds flitting above, leaves rustling underfoot. But it felt watchful, as if eyes hid behind every tree. When I finally reached the lodge, my excitement faltered. It was a ruin. Its roof caved in, logs rotting under vines, and mold. The air reeked of decay, a sour tang that clung to my throat. I peered inside, the open door revealing a hallway choked with debris. A distant door stood intact, tempting me, but the floor sagged dangerously. I backed away. My plan, to camp inside, abandoned. Instead, I found a clearing 200 feet from the lodge, a small patch of earth where I could pitch my tent. Have you ever stood in a place so quiet it feels like the world is holding its breath? The sun was dipping low, painting the trees in hues of amber and shadow. I built a small fire, its warmth a fragile shield against the encroaching dark. As night fell, the lodge vanished into the blackness, its presence a weight I couldn't shake. Crickets sang, their chorus blending with the fire's soft crackle, but my mind wandered. I tried to stargaze, but the trees loomed too close, their branches clawing at the sky. I tossed sticks into the flames, each one consumed with a fleeting hiss, and let my thoughts drift, until a sound shattered the calm. It came from the lodge's direction, a deep, groaning bend of wood, like something heavy was shifting in the dark. Feel your pulse quicken the way a single sound can rewrite the night. It lasted only seconds, but it sent a chill racing down my spine. I sat frozen, straining to hear more, my fire's glow suddenly feeble. Was it just the wind tugging at the lodge's bones? Or something else? Something alive? I waited. Minutes, stretching into half an hour, but the forest stayed silent. Sleep felt impossible now, my nerves raw. I couldn't ignore it. I had to know. I fed the fire, grabbed my LED lamp, and headed toward the lodge, each step heavier than the last. The forest was a different beast at night. My lamp's beam carved a narrow path, but the darkness pressed in, thick and unyielding. See it now. A world where light is a stranger, where every shadow hides a threat. The lodge emerged, its silhouette jagged against the trees. I moved cautiously, my breath shallow, passing broken windows that gaped like empty eyes. The door, which I'd left open, was now closed. My heart stuttered. I raised the lamp, and there they were, scratches deep and jagged etched across the wood like claw marks. Had they been there before? I couldn't remember, my mind fogged with doubt. I reached for the handle, hesitating. Have you ever stood before a choice, knowing it could change everything? I pushed, but the door wouldn't budge, as if something held it from the other side. Panic surged, and I stumbled back, the lamp trembling in my hand. I hurried toward my campsite, the forest's silence now oppressive. But as I neared, I stopped cold. The fire was gone, a column of smoke rising where flames should have been, as if doused moments ago. Feel that violation, the way safety crumbles in an instant. I swept the lamp around, searching for signs, footprints, anything, but the ground was a mess of leaves and dirt. My tent stood untouched, yet the air felt wrong, charged with a presence I couldn't see. I called out, my voice thin and unsteady. "Who's out there?" No answer, just the rustle of wind through the trees. I started packing, my hands shaking, shoving gear into my bag. Then I heard it, a laugh, soft and sinister, drifting from the darkness. Hear it echo, that sound that strips away your courage. It wasn't friendly, not the laugh of someone stumbling upon my camp. It was deliberate, a single voice watching me from the shadows, relishing my fear. I froze, lamp raised, but the forest swallowed the sound, leaving only silence. Picture yourself alone, surrounded by trees that hide a predator. I moved faster, tearing down the tent, abandoning scraps in my haste. The laugh came again, closer now, a low chuckle that curled around me like smoke. I ran, the trail barely visible, my lamp's beam bouncing wildly. Branches snagged my clothes, roots tripped my feet, but I didn't stop. Every few steps I thought I heard it, soft, mocking, just beyond my light. Was it following me? I couldn't tell, the darkness too thick, my fear too loud. The 2-hour hike back felt endless, my lungs burning, my mind racing. Feel that desperation, the need to escape a nightmare you can't define. I reached my car, fumbling with the keys, and drove away, the forest shrinking in my mirrors. 7 years later, that night remains the most terrifying of my life. I don't know who or what was in those woods, but the lodge, that laugh, they haunt me still. Some places hold on to their darkness and you carry it with you forever. The cold bit my skin as I climbed the final ridge, the mountain's silence swallowing every sound. Montana's wild heart stretched before me, just outside Glacier National Park, where I'd set out to find solitude on a trail few bothered with in late fall. This overlook wasn't the grand spectacle of the park's peaks, but it was mine alone. No rules, no crowds, just the raw pulse of the earth. Pause. Feel the vastness of that quiet, where you're the only living thing. The air was sharp, heavy with pine and damp earth. The trail a ribbon of dirt winding through dense forest. 6 hours of hiking left my legs burning, my pack heavy on my shoulders. I reached the summit at dusk, a grassy clearing crowned by stone circles, relics of old campfires. Beyond, a cliff jutted out, offering a view of valleys carved by time, forests fading into mist. Sink into that moment where the world feels endless yet fragile. I was alone, or so I thought. The cold didn't bother me. It was a companion, sharpening my senses. I'd come to escape the noise of life, to breathe in the stillness. But as the sun dipped low, painting the sky in blood and gold, I felt a prickle on my neck, a whisper of something watching. Hold that feeling, the edge of unease in a place too quiet. I didn't know then that the mountain wasn't mine. It belonged to someone else, someone whose footsteps would haunt my every breath. I chose a stone circle near the cliff, its blackened rocks promising warmth against the gathering night. Feel the weight of solitude, the comfort of routine in the wild. My tent rose quickly, stakes driven into the earth, the fabric taut against the wind. A small fire flickered to life, its glow dancing on the grass, the scent of burning pine curling into the air. I cooked a simple meal, the steam rising, in wisps, my hunger sated by the quiet. Breathe in that peace, fleeting as it is. With dinner done, I walked to the cliff's edge, the overlooked stone cold beneath my boots. The drop below was dizzying, a void swallowing the valley's shadows. But the sunset stole my fear, its colors bleeding across the mountains, a fire that warmed my soul. Lose yourself in that beauty where danger feels far away. I sat there, legs dangling, the world vast and still. For 30 minutes I was part of the mountain, its pulse my own. As darkness fell, the stars blinked awake, faint against the clouds. I stood, ready to return to my fire, my heart full. Stop. Feel the shift. The moment peace cracks. A rustle in the bushes froze me. There, at the forest's edge, stood a man, his eyes locked on mine. No backpack, no gear, just him, a shadow in the gloom. Before I could speak, he turned, vanishing into the trees. Feel that jolt when solitude becomes a lie. My pulse raced, the cliff's edge suddenly too close. I scanned the clearing, but my camp was alone. He hadn't gone toward it. He'd fled deeper into the dark. That man's silhouette burned into my mind, his gaze a violation of my sanctuary. Have you ever felt eyes on you, uninvited, in a place you thought was yours? I stood by the cliff, the wind now cruel, stealing the warmth from my skin. My fire's glow seemed feeble, a beacon in the vast dark. sink into that unease where every shadow hides a threat. I walked back to camp, my boots heavy on the grass, eyes darting to the trees. No sign of him, no trace of another camp. The forest swallowed all but the faint crackle of my fire, hold that silence heavy with questions. I told myself he was a hiker, late to the trail, his gear hidden elsewhere. But his flight, so sudden, so silent, gnawed at me. Why run? Why watch me? Feel that doubt, creeping like frost. I fed the fire, its heat a fragile shield, and sat in my chair, the canvas creaking beneath me. The night stretched on, endless, the stars obscured by clouds. I tried to relax, to reclaim the peace I'd come for, but the forest felt alive, its whispers too. Human, stand there where safety phrase. I scanned the trees, my breath shallow, expecting his face to emerge. Nothing came, but the quiet was no longer kind. It was a mask, hiding something I couldn't name. Know that fear when the wild turns predator. Hours passed, the fire's embers glowing like dying stars. Have you ever sat alone, the night pressing against you, every sound a warning? It was near 11 p.m., the cold seeping into my bones when I heard it. Footsteps deliberate just beyond the fire's light. Not the scamper of a deer or the shuffle of leaves, but the steady tread of boots on earth. Freeze with me. Feel your heart race. My eyes strained into the dark, the forest a wall of shadows. The steps paused, then resumed, closer now, circling my camp. Hear them, each one a pulse of dread. I called out, my voice thin. Who's there? The footsteps stopped, the silence louder than before. Feel that void, where answers should be. Then they started again, unhurried, mocking my call. No voice answered, no figure emerged. Sink into that terror, where the unknown stalks you. I gripped my chair, my mind racing, animal or man. Animals don't walk like that, don't pause with such intent. But a person would answer, wouldn't they? Cling to that hope, fragile as it is. The steps faded, swallowed by the night, but sleep was impossible. My fire burned low, its warmth a lie. I stayed awake, every rustle a threat, my nerves raw. Stand guard with me, where fear becomes your only companion. I told myself it was nothing, a trick of the wind, but my body knew better. The mountain was no longer mine. It was his, and he was watching. Past midnight, boredom and restlessness drove me back to the cliff. Have you ever sought escape only to walk toward danger? My fire smoldered, its light too weak to reach the overlook. I left it burning, a frail anchor, and walked through the grass, the cold air sharp in my lungs. Feel that pull, the need to face the dark. The sky was murky, stars hidden, but the moon cast a pale glow over the valley, its mountains jagged against the horizon. The breeze was soft, a fleeting calm. Breathe in that moment, where beauty masks threat. I stood on the cliff, the drop below a silent abyss, my heart steadying in the vastness. For a moment I was alone again, the forest's secrets far away. Hold that peace knowing it's a lie. Then, a snap, twigs breaking, bushes thrashing. I spun, my breath catching. The man was there, not fleeing this time. His silhouette moved through the trees, fast, deliberate. See him now, his intent clear in the dark. I shouted, demanding what he wanted, but his voice cut through mine. A jumble of nonsense, his smile a grotesque mask. He closed the distance, blocking my path, his eyes glinting in the moonlight. Feel your blood turn cold, your world narrowing. I stepped aside, but he mirrored me, his movements predatory. The cliff's edge loomed behind, a trap I hadn't seen, coming. Stand there where escape feels impossible. His smile widened and I knew he wasn't here to talk. He was here to kill. In that heartbeat, time slowed, the man's hands reaching for me. Have you ever faced death, its breath hot on your neck? He lunged, aiming to shove me over the cliff, the void yawning below. Feel the ground slip, your life, hanging by a thread. My footing held, my body stronger than his frail frame. I pushed back, his stumble giving me a breath to run. Move with me, your heart pounding. He recovered fast, his rage a living thing, his face twisted with hate. He caught me near the camp, his hands clawing, no pretense left. See his eyes burning with intent to destroy. We grappled, my strength against his desperation, the forest a blur of shadows. He was thin, hollowed by hunger, but driven by something darker. Feel his grip, relentless, unyielding. I struck hard, my fists finding his chest, his gasps sharp in the night. After seconds that felt like years, he faltered, fleeing into the trees. Breathe now, but don't stop running. I didn't chase. Out here, alone, it was suicide. My hands shook as I packed, tearing down my tent, the fire dead. My headlamp flickered, its beam weak, guiding me down the trail. Run with me, the dark closing in. 2 hours later, the batteries died, forcing me to camp in the woods, the night a suffocating weight. At dawn, I hiked on, the mountain silence, mocking my fear. Feel that escape, fragile as glass. I reported him, but no one knew who he was, his motives a void. I'd survived, but barely. Years later, that night on the overlook still claws at me. Have you ever carried a scar no one sees? I've hiked since, but never alone, never without checking the shadows. The mountain's beauty is tainted now, its silence a lie. Step back to that cliff, feel its edge under your feet. I see him in my dreams, his smile, his hands reaching. The cliffs drop endless. See him now, a ghost in your mind. No one found him, no trace of his camp, his existence a question mark. Was he a drifter, a killer, or something worse? Sink into that unknown, where answers breed fear. I told friends, rangers, anyone who'd listen, but their theories, madman, thief, felt hollow. He wanted me dead, that much I know. Feel that truth, cold as stone. The Overlook's view, once a refuge, is now a warning. I was lucky, stronger, faster, alert. But what if I hadn't been? Imagine that fall, the dark claiming you. I check my gear now, sleep lightly, hear his steps in every quiet night, hear them now, soft and close, never gone. The mountain taught me this. Solitude is a trap, the wild a stage for monsters. Some nights I feel him out there, waiting, his smile, carved into the dark. Know he's there just beyond your sight. Last summer I stood at the edge of a forgotten trail, the forest stretching before me like a living, breathing secret. My dog Rocky, an Australian shepherd with eyes that saw more than mine ever could, danced at my side, his tail a blur of excitement. We were headed to our sanctuary, a hidden campsite deep in the woods, a place where the world fell away. But this time something waited for us in the shadows, something that would haunt me long after we left. The trail was an old friend, one I'd walked 3, maybe 4 times before. It snaked through dense pines, the air thick with moss and earth, a place where time slowed and worries dissolved. Rocky loved it. Off-leash, he'd bound through the underbrush, chasing scents only he knew. At 23, these trips were my escape. The solitude of the forest, the crackle of a campfire under a starless sky. Our destination, 8 hours down the trail, was a small clearing ringed by towering trees, far from hikers or tourists. Just me, Rocky, and the wild. We started at dawn, my backpack heavy, Rocky trotting ahead, his ears twitching at every sound. The hike was grueling, my boots sinking into soft earth, sweat stinging my eyes. By late afternoon, the sun hung low, bathing the forest in gold. We reached the clearing as the light faded, the trees closing in like silent guardians. I dropped my pack, my shoulders burning, and surveyed the familiar scene. The flat ground, the faint scar of old campfires, the endless pines. Rocky began, his patrol sniffing the perimeter, his nose low. I smiled, watching him weave through the trees, his energy boundless. This is why we come here, I thought, unrolling the tent, hammering stakes into the earth. The forest was quiet, save for a distant bird call, the whisper of leaves. But as I worked, a strange weight settled over me, like the air was watching. I shook it off, blaming the long hike, and focused on the fire. As the sun dipped below the treetops, the forest changed, its glow swallowed by shadows. I knelt by the fire pit, stacking kindling, the first sparks catching. Rocky should have been off chasing squirrels, but he was back. Too soon, too quiet. His tail was low, his ears pinned, and he pressed against my leg, staring into the woods. My hand froze, the stick I held dangling. Rocky wasn't like this, not my fearless dog who'd face storms without flinching. "Hey buddy, what's wrong?" I murmured, checking his fur for injuries. Nothing. His coat was smooth, but his eyes, wide, unblinking, never left the forest. I followed his gaze, squinting into the gloom. The trees stood still, their branches a tangle of black. No movement, no sound, just an emptiness that felt wrong. I stood, brushing dirt from my knees, and called his name, hoping to snap him out of it. He didn't move, his whine low, urgent. Something's out there, I thought, my pulse quickening. I grabbed my flashlight, its beam cutting a weak path, and scanned the woods. Nothing but trunks and shadows. "It's okay, Rock," I said, but the words felt hollow. I went back to camp, dragging the cooler, arranging pots. Rocky stayed glued to me, his wanderlust gone, his eyes darting to the woods. Each time I looked over my shoulder, an uneasy prickle crawled up my neck like someone was staring back. It's just him, I told myself, piling wood onto the fire, the flames leaping higher. But as night fell, the forest's silence grew, less a lullaby and more a held breath. The fire cast a fragile glow, its warmth a lie against the chill from the woods. Rocky lay beside me, his head on his paws, but he wasn't resting. His ears twitched, his body coiled, his gaze fixed on the blackness. I poked at the fire, the wood popping, but the forest was silent, the usual crickets and owls gone. Maybe a fox had spooked Rocky earlier, but his vigilance was unnerving, his tail tucked, his whine a plea I couldn't answer. An hour past sunset, he rocketed to his feet, his head snapping toward the woods. His lips curled, a growl rumbling, his eyes burning with something I couldn't see. I grabbed the flashlight, my hand slick, and swept the beam across the trees. The light caught nothing but bark, the darkness swallowing the rest. "What is it, boy?" I whispered, my voice shaking. Rocky's growl deepened, his body poised to charge. I stepped forward, the flashlight trembling, my boots crunching leaves. 50 feet from the fire, I stopped, the beam fading into the void. Nothing moved, no eyes gleamed, yet the air felt charged, like before lightning. I backed away, Rocky at my side, his growl steady. At the fire, I clutched the bear spray, its weight a small comfort. It's just an animal, I told myself, the lie bitter. Rocky didn't relax, and I sat, watching the flames, listening to my heartbeat. Hours later, we crawled into the tent. The fire's embers faint. Rocky curled beside me, his warmth grounding, but his ears stayed alert. Exhaustion pulled me under, and I slipped into a dream. A moonless forest, the trees closing in. I walked alone. No Rocky. The crunch of snow under my boots, though the air was warm. A high-pitched sound pierced the dream, sharp, relentless. A scream trapped in metal. I jolted awake. The tent dark, stifling. Rocky nudged my face, his snout wet, his whine the sound from my dream. He'd been trying to wake me, his claws scraping the floor, his eyes wide with panic. Something was here. The tent was a coffin, the air thick with Rocky's whines. My hands shook as I grabbed the flashlight, its beam a frail thread. I unzipped the tent, the sound loud, and stepped out. Rocky pressed against me. The beam stopped short. 10 feet away, a figure stood, caught in the glare. A man, draped in black, his hoodie obscuring half his face, his beard ragged. His eyes, hidden, glinted with something wrong. In his hand, a pocket knife gleamed, reflecting the light like a cruel smile. My body locked, my breath trapped. The man didn't move, his stare pinning me, the silence a scream. Rocky's fur brushed my leg, his growl a primal warning. The man stepped forward, his boot sinking, the knife tilting. Time slowed, his silhouette predatory. "Run!" my mind screamed, but my legs were stone. Rocky lunged, his teeth bared, his bark shattering the night so fierce it snapped me awake. The man hesitated, his knife wavering, his eyes darting to Rocky, pacing between us. My hand shot into the tent, fumbling for the bear spray, my fingers closing around it. I raised it, my arm trembling, ready to fight. Rocky's barks grew frantic, and the man froze, his gaze flickering. Then he turned and bolted, swallowed by the woods, the darkness closing. Rocky stayed, his head high, circling the clearing as I stood, gasping, the flashlight shaking. He's gone, but the forest wasn't safe. I tore down the tent, shoving gear into my pack, the embers casting shadows. Rocky patrolled, his barks sharp, his eyes scanning. We hit the trail, the hike back a blur of fear, my flashlight cutting through the night. Rocky stayed close, my lifeline, and by dawn we reached the car, my body trembling but alive. The car was a fortress, the engine a promise as we left the forest. I reported the incident, my voice shaking, but the trail's remoteness meant no answers. Just me, Rocky, and that night. Back home, the city's noise felt foreign, its lights too bright. Rocky was himself, chasing squirrels, his eyes bright. But I saw him differently. His instincts, his courage, a shield I'd trusted too late. I've camped since, but never alone, never without checking Rocky's gaze. If he hesitates, if he stares into the dark, I listen. Because out there, where shadows move and silence lies, something waits, and Rocky knows it before I ever will. The rain painted my windows with endless tears, but the silence inside my home was louder, heavier, waiting to break. I lived alone in a 2-story townhouse, a cozy corner of the world where I worked remotely, my days blurring into nights of laptop glow and coffee. The unit next door, sharing a thin wall with mine, had been vacant for over 3 months, its emptiness a quiet comfort. Feel that solitude, the way it wraps around you like a blanket, until it starts to suffocate. It was mid-2018, a rainy evening, and I was deep in work, unaware that the night was about to unravel into something I'd never forget. The house was small but functional, a kitchen and living room downstairs, 2 bedrooms upstairs, one my office, the other my sanctuary. The rain tapped relentlessly, a soft rhythm against the roof, lulling me into focus. I'd been at my desk for hours, the world outside reduced to a gray blur. Have you ever lost yourself in work, only to feel the room shift, like it's watching you back? Around 8, a dull thud broke my rhythm, coming from the wall I shared with the vacant unit. I paused, my fingers hovering over the keyboard, my breath catching. Another thud followed, heavier, deliberate. I frowned, picturing the empty rooms next door, dusty floors, bare walls, nothing to make a sound. Maybe the owner was checking the place, prepping it for a new tenant. I shook it off and kept typing, but the unease lingered, a faint itch I couldn't scratch. Over the next hour, the noises grew sporadic but persistent. A creak here, a muffled scrape there, each one pulling me further from my work. Picture it, a house alive with sounds that don't belong, each one a question you don't want answered. I tried to focus, but my ears strained, catching every anomaly. The rain's steady drone made it hard to pinpoint, but the noises felt too human, too intentional. I told myself it was nothing, pipes settling, wind rattling loose boards, but doubt gnawed at me. By 9:30, a louder sound cut through, a door creaking open, then easing shut, the kind of sound that echoes in an empty space. My heart stuttered. No one had lived next door in months. I set my laptop aside, my palms damp, and decided to check. I slipped downstairs, the house dark save for the glow of my office light spilling into the hall. Feel that moment, when curiosity battles fear and you move anyway. I peered out the front window expecting to see the owner's car, but the driveway was empty, the street beyond slick and deserted. The rain fell harder now, blurring the world. Outside, I checked the front door, twisting the lock to confirm it was secure, then listened. The unit next door was silent, no hum of voices, no footsteps. I exhaled, chastising myself for overreacting. Probably just the storm, I thought, and headed back upstairs, determined to finish my work. In my office, I closed the door, the rain a distant murmur. Have you ever tried to ignore a feeling, only for it to grow louder in your chest? I forced myself to focus, promising just 30 more minutes before bed. The clock ticked, my eyelids growing heavy, the world narrowing to lines of code and deadlines. Then, like a blade through silk, a sound pierced the quiet, a slow, eerie whistle, soft but unmistakable, drifting through the walls. I froze, my breath shallow, the melody curling around me like smoke. It was no random tune, but deliberate, haunting, the kind that lingers in nightmares. Hear it now, that sound that doesn't belong, twisting your reality. I stood, my chair, scraping the floor and cracked my bedroom door. The whistle grew clearer, louder, filling the hallway with its chilling refrain. It wasn't coming from next door. It was inside my house. My pulse roared, my mind scrambling for explanations. A neighbor, a prank? But the townhouse was locked, the night too stormy for visitors. I moved down the stairs, each step a battle against the fear clawing at me. The living room was dark, the TV a black mirror reflecting nothing. See it unfold, the way darkness hides what you dread most. I rounded the corner and there he was, a man sitting in my armchair facing the blank screen. His silhouette was stark, his hand resting on the armrest, clutching something small, glinting like metal. He whistled, slow and steady as if I wasn't there. My heart slammed against my ribs, my body rooted to the spot. Feel that terror when the impossible becomes real. He didn't turn, didn't acknowledge me, just stared ahead, his tune unbroken. The room smelled faintly of damp cloth and metal, alien in my home. I wanted to speak, to demand answers, but my voice died in my throat. Why was he here? How had he gotten in? The open door to the vacant unit flashed in my mind. Had he come through there? My eyes darted to the front door, my only escape. I backed away, my movements slow, deliberate, praying he wouldn't notice. The whistling continued, a relentless thread tying me to that moment. I reached the door, my hand trembling as I turned the knob and bolted into the rain. The cold stung my skin, the storm swallowing my gasps. Picture yourself running, the world a blur, fear your only guide. I sprinted. To the end of the street, my phone clutched tight and dialed for help. The operator's voice was a lifeline, grounding me as I stammered my address. Minutes later, sirens pierced the night, red and blue lights cutting through the rain. The police approached my house, and from outside I heard it, that same eerie whistle floating through the open door. Feel that chill knowing something evil waits inside. They found him in the same chair, unmoving, his eyes glinting as he turned to them with a crooked smile. He dropped the gun, let them cuff him, but said nothing. Not his name, not his purpose. The officers speculated later, some thinking he wanted to be caught, others unsure. His fingerprints matched no records, his identity a void. Have you ever faced a mystery so deep it haunts your dreams? I moved soon after, unable to sleep in that house, its walls tainted by his presence. Even now, years later, I wake in the night, heart racing, certain I hear that whistle echoing in the dark. Some fears never leave you. They just wait, patient in the silence. The rain battered the roof like 1,000 fists, the storm's rage shaking the walls of our little house. I was 16, living with my parents in a wooded corner of the suburbs, an hour's drive from the city's hum. Our home was old, its wooden frame groaning under time's weight, nestled among trees that swayed like ghosts in the wind. Pause, feel the storm's pulse, loud enough to drown your thoughts. That weekday, the sky had been bruised all day, clouds heavy with threat. Everyone at school buzzed about the coming storm, but I didn't care. Rain was just rain as long as I got home dry. By afternoon it hit, a deluge that turned the world gray. Sink into that chaos, where the familiar feels wrong. I sprawled on the living room couch, TV flickering, the open windows letting in the storm's breath. The wind howled, rattling the panes, the house swaying as if alive. It was unsettling, but I told myself it was fine. Old houses talk, don't they? Hold that comfort, fragile as glass. I waited for my parents, their city jobs keeping them late. The TV's drone was my anchor, the storm a wild symphony outside. But beneath the rain's roar, something else stirred. A feeling I couldn't name, like eyes watching from the dark. Feel that prickle, the edge of fear, in a place you trust. I didn't know then that the storm was hiding more than wind and water. It was bringing someone to our door, someone who knew I was alone. At 5:30, my phone erupted, its flood warning slicing through the TV's hum. Stop. Feel the jolt, your heart skipping a beat. The alert screamed of rising waters, roads, swallowed by the storm. I muted the TV, the rain's roar filling the silence. Breathe in that moment where safety starts to slip. Minutes later, Mom called, her voice tight. The city was a mess, roads flooded, too dangerous to drive. They'd stay in a hotel, she said, checking if I was okay. The house is fine, I lied, ignoring the wind's howl, the wall's groans. Cling to that bravado, a shield against the dark. She hung up and I was alone, the storm my only company. I wandered to the kitchen, the linoleum cold under my socks and heated leftovers. The microwave's hum a frail comfort. Feel that routine. A lie you tell yourself. The storm raged on, its fury muffling the world. I stood by the counter, waiting, when a sound cut through. A sharp rap, like wood struck hard. Freeze with me, your pulse quickening. It was faint, lost in the rain's drum, probably a branch hitting the house. I shook it off, grabbed my food, and returned to the couch. Sink into that denial, where doubt creeps in. The TV glowed, but the storm's voice was louder, its secrets whispering, in the wind. I didn't know it yet, but someone was already at my door. As I settled on the couch, plate in hand, the sound came again. 3 sharp raps, deliberate from the front door. Have you ever heard a sound that stops your heart? My fork froze, eyes darting to the door, inches away. Feel that chill when home becomes a stranger. The storm roared, but those knocks were clear, a pattern too human to ignore. In this weather, who'd be out there? Hold that question, heavy as stone. I sat, paralyzed, the TV's glow flickering on my face. The knocks didn't repeat, but the silence was worse, thick with threat. Sink into that quiet where fear takes root. I forced myself up, legs unsteady, and crept to the door. The peephole was fogged, showing only rain's blur, no shapes, no movement. Stand there peering into the unknown. My hand hovered over the lock, heart pounding. I opened it, the wind biting my face. No one, just the storm, wild and endless. Breathe that relief, fleeting as it is. But then I saw them, footsteps in the mud, leading to the porch. Fresh, deep, untouched by the rain's erase. See them now, a trail of dread. My blood turned cold, the door slamming shut, my hands shaking as I locked it. Feel that panic, your sanctuary breached. I wanted to call Mom, the police, anyone, but fear fought reason. Maybe they were gone, I told myself. Cling to that hope, fragile as it is. I turned the TV low, ears straining for more. The storm's roar no longer a comfort, but a mask. Know that fear, when every sound is a threat. I ate in silence, the food, tasteless, my eyes fixed on the door. Have you ever watched a place you love become a cage? The storm didn't relent. Its fury a constant roar, but I stayed alert, promising to call if anything else happened. Feel that resolve, brittle under fear. Hours blurred, the TV's drone lulling me. I don't know when I drifted off, sprawled, on the couch, the plate sliding to the floor. Sink into that haze where dreams blur with truth. I woke in darkness, the house black, the storm as loud as ever. Stop. Feel the disorientation, your world off kilter. My phone glowed, showing missed calls, texts from Mom. Roads still flooded. They'd stay in the city. I rubbed my eyes, confused. When it hit me, a single step, heavy, on the wooden floor above. Hear it now, a sound that steals your breath. Not the wind, not the house settling, unmistakably human, from my bedroom. Freeze with me, your heart racing. I stared at the ceiling, tracking the steps, slow and deliberate, crossing my room. They paused, then moved toward the hallway. Feel that terror when your home betrays you. My phone went silent, my fingers fumbling as I bolted to the bathroom, locking the door in the dark. Run with me, the shadows closing in. The storm's roar drowned my breath, but the footsteps echoed in my mind, a promise of something coming. Know that dread, when you're no longer alone. In the bathroom, the darkness was absolute. My phone's dim glow, my only light. Have you ever hidden, praying you're unseen? I dialed 911, whispering my name, address, the truth. Someone was in my house. Feel that whisper, your voice a thread of hope. The operator answered, but I couldn't risk sound. The footsteps now descending the stairs, each one a hammer on my heart. Hear them. slow and sure, hunting you. They moved through the hallway, past the bathroom, the storm filling the gaps between steps. Hold your breath, the door your only shield. I crouched, knees to chest, the tiles cold, my phone's light low. The steps reached the kitchen, then stopped. Feel that silence, louder than the storm. Seconds stretched, my pulse a roar in my ears. Was he waiting? Listening? Sink into that agony where time betrays you. I clutched my phone, the call still live, my eyes locked on the door's shadow. The storm raged, but the house was too quiet, its secrets exposed. Stand there, trapped, the intruder so close. I pictured him, faceless, nameless, standing in my kitchen, knowing I was here. See him now, a shadow with intent. The minutes dragged, each one a test of my nerve. I prayed for rescue, for the storm to end, for this to be a dream. Cling to that prayer, fragile as it is. But the footsteps didn't return, and the silence grew heavier, a promise of something worse to come. Know that fear, when the unknown owns your home. After what felt like hours, a loud rap at the front door shattered the quiet. Stop, feel the jolt, hope and fear colliding. Police! A voice called, firm, real. Breathe that relief, sharp as a blade. I stumbled from the bathroom, legs weak, and flung open the door. Flashlights cut through the dark, officers' faces stern but safe. See them, your lifeline in the storm. The house was empty, the intruder gone. A sliding back door stood ajar, rain pooling on the floor, proof of their escape. Feel that violation, your home defiled. The police searched, finding no trace, no sign of entry but that door, its lock untouched. The storm, they said, must have masked their break-in, kept me asleep on the couch. Sink into that luck, fragile as it is. I was alive because I hadn't stirred, hadn't faced them in my room. Know that truth, cold as the rain. They took my statement, their radios crackling, but the intruder was a ghost, vanished into the night. Stand there, where answers slip away. The house felt wrong now, its warmth a lie. I packed a bag, stayed with neighbors, the storm's roar fading but never gone. Feel that escape, haunted by what remains. The police left, their lights swallowed by the rain, and I was left with questions that cut deeper than fear. Years later, that night still grips me, a shadow I can't outrun. Have you ever carried a fear that shapes your life? I've moved, grown, but the storm's echo lives in me, its rain a whisper in my dreams. Step back to that house, feel its walls close. In the intruder's face, man, woman, stranger, friend remains a void, their intent a wound. See them now, a ghost in your mind. We never learned who they were, why they came, why my room. Sink into that unknown, where every answer terrifies. The police found nothing, no fingerprints, no trail. My parents tightened locks, moved us closer to the city, but the fear stayed. Feel that weight, a guest that never leaves. I see the footsteps in the mud, hear them on my floor, feel their presence in every quiet night. Hear them now, soft and close, forever near. I sleep with lights on, check doors twice, flinch at storms. Know that scar etched in your soul. The worst is the thought they knew me, watched me, waited for that night. Imagine them, out there, planning their return. My parents and I live on edge, glancing over shoulders, fearing a shadow that never shows. Feel that dread, a life half-lived. The storm taught me this. Safety is a lie, home a stage for monsters. Some nights I swear I hear those steps, feel their eyes, know they're waiting just beyond the rain. Know they're there, always watching. In the heart of spring, I drove through a curtain of rain. my headlights slicing the dark, the wipers screaming against the windshield. My house waited at the end of a quiet street, a sanctuary in a sleepy suburban town. But that night, as I unlocked the door, exhausted from a 12-hour shift, a stranger's knock shattered the silence and my sense of safety. I'd lived alone for years in this cozy neighborhood where porch lights glowed softly and neighbors waved from their lawns. Nothing ever happened here. No sirens, no scandals, just the hum of ordinary life. At 28, I'd carved out a routine, work at the hospital, long shifts saving lives, then home to my small brick house, its walls a shield against the world. That night, the rain had pounded the town for days, turning streets into rivers, keeping everyone indoors. I pulled into my driveway at 9 p.m., my scrubs damp, my body aching. The house was dark, the windows reflecting the storm's fury. I hurried inside, kicking off my shoes, the air thick with the scent of wet wood and old paint. I tossed leftovers in the oven, sank onto the couch and let the TV's murmur fill the silence, its glow a weak defense against the night. 10 minutes later, a knock, sharp, insistent, rattled the front door. My heart jumped, my hand freezing on the remote. Who's out in this storm? I stood hesitant and peered through the peephole. A man stood on my porch, his black rain jacket glistening, water streaming from his hood. His face was shadowed, but his posture was wrong. Too still, too heavy, like he carried something darker than the rain. I opened the door a crack, the cold air rushing in. "Can I help you?" I asked, my voice tighter than I meant. He lifted his head, his eyes droopy, his face pale and stiff, like a mask carved from wax. He was older, maybe mid-30s, his beard dark and matted, his brown hair plastered to his skull. He stared, his gaze sliding past me into the house, lingering on the living room's soft light. "My dog," he said, his voice slow, flat. "Jumped the fence, have you seen it?" "No," I said, shaking my head. "I haven't seen anything," he nodded, but his eyes didn't move, still probing my home. Then, slowly, he turned, his boots sloshing through the rain as he stepped off the porch. I closed the door, locking it, my pulse loud in my ears. He's just tired, I told myself, sinking back onto the couch, worried about his dog. But his face, those empty eyes, clung to me, a shadow I couldn't shake. 15 minutes passed, the TV droning, the rain a relentless roar against the roof. I tried to focus, to lose myself in the sitcom's laughter, but my eyes kept drifting to the door, expecting another knock. When it came, louder, more urgent, I nearly dropped the remote, my heart lurching. I stood, my legs unsteady, and checked the peephole again. It was him, the same man, his rain jacket darker now, soaked through, his face unchanged. Pale, motionless, his eyes locked on the door like he could see through it. My stomach twisted. Why is he back? I opened the door, less patient this time. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice sharp, my hand gripping the frame. He pointed to the side of my house, his finger trembling slightly, his eyes still avoiding mine. "Saw my dog," he said, his tone odd, too rehearsed. "Ran into your backyard. Can I look back there?" Something was wrong. The way his words hung in the air, the way his gaze darted past me, hungry for the inside of my home. But I wanted him gone, away from my door. "Sure," I said, forcing calm. "Go check the yard." He muttered, thank you, but as I started to close the door, he stepped forward, his boot crossing the threshold, like he thought I'd let him inside. My heart stopped. I pushed the door shut, the lock clicking, my breath shallow. Through the peephole I watched him hesitate, then turn, sloshing toward the side of the house. I stood there, my hand on the lock, the rain's rhythm syncing with my pulse. He's just looking for his dog, I told myself, but the lie felt thin. I moved to the kitchen where the back door's glass panel overlooked the yard. I didn't want to spy, but I couldn't sit still with him out there wandering my property. I busied myself wiping counters, stacking dishes, but my eyes kept flicking to the door. The yard was dark, the rain blurring the view, but I saw him, a shadow moving along the fence, his head down, his steps slow. He circled the perimeter, his figure fading in and out of the storm. He'll leave soon, I thought, my fingers tightening on a sponge. But then, I looked again, and he was there, his face pressed against the glass, inches from mine. His eyes, wide and unblinking, bored into me, his breath fogging the pain. I stumbled, back, a scream catching in my throat. "What do you want?" I yelled, my voice cracking. "Is my dog inside?" he called, his voice muffled but sharp, his fist tapping the glass. "No!" I shouted, my heart racing. "Get out of here!" His face stayed there, a pale smear against the glass, his eyes locked on me, unyielding. The rain streamed down his cheeks, but he didn't blink, didn't move, his fist tapping again, harder, the sound a drumbeat in my chest. "Is it inside?" he repeated, his voice rising, a crack of anger breaking through. "Let me check." "No," I said, stepping back, my hands shaking. "Leave now." He didn't. His fist pounded the door, the glass trembling, his face twisting. Anger, desperation, something darker. "Just let me look," he shouted, his voice raw, his eyes wild, like a predator denied its prey. Each thud sent a jolt through me, the door rattling in its frame, the lock my only shield. I fumbled for my phone, my fingers slipping, my eyes never leaving his. "I'm calling the police," I said, loud enough for him to hear, holding the phone up. His fist stopped midair, his eyes narrowing, a flicker of something, fear maybe, crossing his face. He stepped back, his figure blurring in the rain, then turned and vanished into the storm. The yard was empty, the glass clear, but his presence lingered, a stain on the night. I dialed 911, my voice trembling as I explained, the operator's calm questions grounding me. The police arrived minutes later, their flashlights sweeping the yard, their radios crackling. They found nothing, no footprints, no trace, the rain washing away any evidence. They took my statement, described the man, mid-30s, bearded, black rain jacket, but their faces said it all. A dead end. "Lock your doors," one officer said, his tone kind but tired. "Call if he comes back." I nodded, my throat tight, and watched their car disappear into the rain. Alone again, I checked every lock, every window, the house a fortress now, but not enough. I sat on the couch, the TV off, the silence deafening, my eyes fixed on the door. "He's gone," I told myself, but sleep wouldn't come, the memory of his face burned into me. The days that followed were a blur, the rain unrelenting, the house too quiet. I went to work, smiled through my shifts, but my eyes darted to every shadow, every stranger. The man's face haunted me. Those eyes, that voice, the way he'd looked into my home like he belonged there. A week later, I saw the news. A local report, buried in the paper's back pages. Another house, another knock, another man claiming a lost dog. But this time it didn't end with a locked door. The details were vague. Victims attacked, a home invaded. But the story was mine, twisted into something worse. The man had used the same lie, the same hollow plea, and someone had let him in. My blood ran cold, my hands shaking as I read. That could have been me. If I'd opened the door wider, if I'd believed his story, if I'd let him into the yard, through my house. I saw it in my mind. His boots on my floor, his knife glinting, his eyes empty as he stepped closer. I called the police again, my voice urgent, linking my report to the new case. They listened, promised to follow up, but I heard the doubt in their tone. No evidence, no witnesses, just a story too close to another's tragedy. I checked my locks obsessively, slept with a light on, my phone clutched tight. The rain stopped. The town returned to its quiet rhythm, but I didn't. I saw him in every shadow, heard his knock in every sound. Even now, years later, I pause, at my door, my heart racing, certain I'll see his face through the glass, his voice asking for a dog that never existed. The forest held its breath, its shadows cloaking secrets that turned our joy to ash. I was 19, head over heels, camping with my fiancé at a familiar site just 30 minutes from home. We'd pitched our tent in this same spot a year before, a quiet haven where we could escape the world. But this trip was special. August 11th marked our engagement, a day of laughter and promises. Feel that warmth, the way love paints everything golden until darkness creeps in. We lived in a conservative, mostly white area, where my fiancé, a person of color, stood out. That night, the forest we loved became a stage for terror, and I learned how fragile happiness can be. Our first night was restless. The campsite was sparse, only one other group 150 yards away, their fire a distant flicker. We curled up in our tent, the air cool, the woods alive with rustling leaves. Have you ever lain awake, wondering if the night is friend or foe? Strange. Sound circled us, shuffling, heavy, too deliberate for deer. We dismissed it, clinging to logic, but sleep came uneasily. The forest's pulse too loud. The next morning we shook off the unease, eager for the day ahead. My fiancé had planned a surprise, inviting my family to nearby battlefields for a picnic. There, under a wide sky, he proposed, his smile brighter than the sun. We celebrated, until evening, returning to camp as dusk settled, our hearts full. But the campsite felt wrong. Picture it, a place you know, twisted by an unseen hand. Our tent's zipper was half open, blankets tossed, clothes strewn across the floor. My backpack was unzipped, its contents rearranged, a pair of my underwear gone. My stomach churned, a violation so intimate it stole my breath. We searched for footprints, for any sign, but the ground was too dry, the woods too silent. Maybe kids messing around, my fiancé said, his voice tight. We were young, reckless, convincing ourselves it was nothing. Feel that denial, the way you cling to normalcy when fear whispers truth. We rebuilt the fire, roasted hot dogs, toasted s'mores and smoked cigarettes, our laughter forced but defiant. By 9:30, we doused the flames and retreated to the tent, celebrating our engagement in whispers, trying to reclaim the night. Then it began again. Hear it now, the way silence shatters when danger draws near. Footsteps slow and heavy circled the tent. Not animals, not wind. Human, deliberate, pacing just beyond the canvas. We froze, our breath shallow, eyes locked in the dim glow of our lantern. A whisper followed, low and guttural, words we couldn't catch but felt like knives. Have you ever felt eyes on you, unseen but undeniable? Another voice joined, fainter, confirming our dread. Two men, out there, watching. My fiancé's hand tightened on mine, his face pale. We stayed silent, hoping they'd leave, but the footsteps grew closer, the whispers sharper. My heart pounded, a drumbeat drowning out reason. I need the bathroom, my fiancé mouthed, a desperate plan forming. I nodded, fear choking my words. The bathroom was up the hill, a drive for most campers, but we'd run for it. Feel that moment when survival overrides everything. He grabbed his pocket knife and keys, flicked on the lantern, and pulled on his binder. That's when it happened. A voice, cold and malicious, sliced through the tent. What are you doing? It was close, inches from the canvas laced with a snicker that turned my blood to ice. See it unfold, the way a single phrase can rewrite your world. We didn't think, we ran. My fiancé yanked me out, the night air biting as we sprinted to the car. Footsteps pounded behind us, then veered off, fading toward another site. I glanced back, my chest heaving, but saw only darkness. We reached the car, fumbling with the locks, and sped to the bathroom. Inside, we gasped for air, plotting our escape. Picture yourself trapped, weighing impossible choices in a heartbeat. Sleeping in the car felt too exposed. Driving to town meant leaving our gear. We decided to pack and flee. We drove back to the site, adrenaline surging, and tore down the tent, stuffing belongings inside without care. Folding chairs clattered into the trunk, our breaths ragged. I leapt out to grab our nameplate, my full name etched on it, a chilling afterthought. And we peeled out. As we passed the site, I saw them. Feel your heart stop, the way truth reveals itself in a glance. Two tall white men emerged from the woods, one in camo hunting gear, the other in a Confederate flag tank top. Their hunting knives gleamed, unsheathed, ready. The camo man met my eyes, his smile a twisted promise of violence, shaking his head slowly as his partner stopped him from chasing us. We took the long way home, weaving through back roads, my hands shaking on the wheel. Feel that flight, the way fear lingers even in escape. I called my dad, spilling the story, but he brushed it off as paranoia, his dismissal a fresh wound. We never told anyone else, the weight of disbelief too heavy. Years later, I'm certain it was no accident. Those men had shadowed us from the start, their truck circling our sight, their glares a warning we'd missed. My fiancé, the only non-white person there, was their target, our love a spark for their hate. Some nightmares don't end when you wake. They carve themselves into your soul. The air was thick with sweat and despair, the dorm's walls closing in like a trap. At 13, I was sent to an all-girls fitness camp, a polite name for a place meant to shrink kids like me. It was hell. Grueling workouts, tasteless meals, counselors, with fake smiles barking orders. Pause. Feel the weight of that place where hope withers. The camp sprawled across a college campus, its dorms cold and sterile, 2 girls to a room. I arrived with a flicker of optimism, dreaming of friends, maybe even fun. Sink into that naivety, fragile as glass. My roommate Mary seemed like a gift. She was all smiles, her eyes bright, her style mirroring mine. Band tees, ripped jeans, a shared love for music. We clicked instantly, whispering late into the night, plotting escapes from this prison, laughing about our parents' betrayal in sending us here. Breathe in that bond, fleeting as it was. I'd smuggled my phone, a secret we shared, our rebellion against the camp's rules. Mary was fitter than most, her presence here puzzling. She was signed up for the whole summer, while I faced just 2 weeks. Hold that mystery, a crack in the facade. Those first nights, the dorm was alive with giggles, the hum of fans fighting the heat. But beneath the chatter, something felt off. Mary's laughter too sharp, her questions too probing. Feel that prickle, the edge of doubt in a place you trust. I didn't know then that the girl I called a friend was hiding a darkness, one that would turn my summer into a nightmare. Stand there, unaware, as the trap begins to close. 2 days in, the camp's grind was suffocating, but Mary was my anchor. Have you ever clung to someone blind to their shadows? We ate together, dodged exercises, shared secrets in the dark. Sink into that trust, a lie you tell yourself. Then, another girl, a friend I'd made in line for breakfast, pulled me aside. Her voice was low, urgent. Be careful with Mary, she said. She's got issues. No one wants to room with her. Stop. Feel the jolt, your world tilting. I laughed it off, dismissing it as gossip, the kind of cruelty kids wield. Cling to that denial, brittle as it is. Mary was my ally, not some monster. But at lunch, her mood shifted, her eyes hard, her words clipped. See her now, a mask slipping. I asked what was wrong, my voice small. She erupted, ranting about the camp's meanness, accusing me of planning to abandon her like others had. Feel that unease when a friend becomes a stranger. She spoke of a past roommate who'd left for a popular girl, spreading lies to fit in. I believed her, my heart soft, promising I'd stay. Breathe that loyalty, a chain you don't see. Looking back, I see how she isolated me, her grip tightening, keeping me from others. Know that manipulation, subtle as a shadow. The dorms, fluorescent lights buzzed, the air heavy with unspoken warnings. I ignored them, too young to see the truth. Stand there blind as the darkness grows. Mary's smile returned, but it was different now, a blade hidden in warmth. I didn't know I was her sixth roommate, or that her kindness was a lure. By the end of my first week, the camp's heat was unbearable, the promise of a pool trip a rare mercy. Have you ever chased relief, only to find danger? Mary and I buzzed. With excitement, the walk to the local pool a sweaty pilgrimage. Breathe in that hope, fleeting as it is. We claimed chairs, dumped our bags, the water glinting like freedom. Mary, a veteran camper, skipped the swim test I had to endure. Feel that separation, a crack in your safety. I passed easily, years on the swim team my shield, and dove in, floating in the cool embrace. Sink into that peace, a lie waiting to break. Mary called my name, waving from the deep end. I swam over, curious, her smile inviting. I want to show you something, she said, her voice soft. Hold that moment where trust betrays you. Her hands shot out, clamping my neck, shoving me under. Freeze with me, the water closing in. I thrashed, panic flooding my lungs, my scream, a bubble lost in the depths. Feel that terror, your life slipping away. Instinct saved me. My legs kicked, pushing her back, my body breaking the surface. Gasp with me, air a desperate gift. I scrambled to the edge, coughing, my heart a hammer. Mary stood still, staring, her eyes empty. See her now, a predator unmasked. I grabbed my things, fled to the bathroom, and called Mom, tears choking my words. She didn't believe me, her doubt a second wound. Know that betrayal, when no one hears. I clung to a counselor's side, the walk back a blur, the pool's chill lingering in my bones. Back at camp, the air was thick with tension, the dorm's halls too quiet. Have you ever spoken truth, only to be silenced? A counselor, stern and impatient, pulled me aside, demanding my phone. Stop. Feel the accusation, your fear dismissed. I lied, claiming I'd borrowed one at the pool, my voice shaking. They believed me, barely, and promised a new room tomorrow. But I had to spend one more night with Mary. Sink into that dread, a sentence you can't escape. I begged to sleep elsewhere, offering another girl's floor, but they called me dramatic, their eyes cold. Feel that rejection, your pleas ignored. Alone again, I hid in a bathroom, calling Mom. She revealed the truth. I was Mary's sixth roommate. 3 girls had fled camp, 2 switched rooms, all claiming violence. See that history, a pattern of pain. The camp did nothing, calling Mary troubled, a girl seeking friends. Know that negligence, a system's failure. My stomach churned, the dorm's walls a cage. I returned to our room, Mary's presence a weight. Stand there, trapped, her Eyes on you." She said nothing, her silence louder than words. The lights flickered, the fans hum a frail shield. Breathe that tension, a storm brewing. I clutched my phone, 911 ready, my heart racing. The night stretched, endless. The camp's rules a chain. Feel that helplessness, a child against a monster. Mary's bed creaked, her shadow looming, and I knew. She wasn't just troubled, she was dangerous, and I was her prey. That night, sleep was a stranger, my eyes locked on Mary's bed. Have you ever faced a threat knowing no one will save you? She didn't sleep either, sitting upright, her gaze piercing the dark. See her now, her eyes a silent promise. I felt her stare, a blade on my skin. My phone's glow, my only anchor. Hold that fear. A night that never ends. I gripped it. 911, dialed. Ready to press call. My breath shallow. Sink into that vigil where every second is survival. The dorm was silent, the camp asleep, but our room was alive with dread. Feel that isolation, a world that doesn't care. Dawn broke, a tearful relief, the sun's light weak but real. Breathe that escape, fragile as it is. I was moved to a new room, but in the chaos I tripped, my foot snapping. Know that pain, a mark of your ordeal. My parents came, a cast my souvenir, the camp a memory I'd bury. Stand there, broken, but alive. Mary's stare haunts me still, her silence a scar. I learned later the camp never acted. Mary left to harm again. Feel that injustice, a wound that festers. I can't share rooms now. Friendships hard to forge. Trust a ghost. See that damage. A life reshaped by fear. Some nights I see her. Her, eyes in the dark, waiting. Know she's there, a shadow never gone. That summer taught me this. Monsters wear smiles, and safety is a lie. Hear her silence, always watching. 3 summers ago, I led my family into the heart of Oregon's wilderness, the pines of Mount Jefferson looming like silent giants. My wife, my daughter, and our 2 German shepherds, Guts and Leah, followed me to a hidden campsite, a place I thought was ours alone. But the forest had secrets, and by the time we left, I knew something had been watching us, something that left its mark in the shadows. I'd spent my life in Oregon's forests, solo backpacking, hunting, feeling the pulse of the wild in my bones. At 35, I was no stranger to its quiet, its dangers, but this trip was different. My family was with me. My wife, Sarah, loved the outdoors but preferred car camping. My daughter, Emma, at 10, was thrilled to sleep under the stars. Guts and Leah, our German shepherds, were our guardians, their presence a comfort in the vast unknown. Our campsite wasn't on any map, just a horseshoe clearing off a USFS road, flat and ringed by dense trees, perfect for privacy. Guts and Leah, intimidating to strangers, could roam free here, their barks echoing without disturbing anyone. We arrived at dusk, the sky bruised purple, the air heavy with pine and damp earth. I set up the tents, ours and a small one for Emma, who insisted on sleeping alone with Guts. As the fire crackled to life, I felt at ease, the forest's embrace familiar. But that night, as the stars vanished behind clouds, a weight settled over me, like the trees themselves were leaning closer, listening. The first night was restless, the fire's glow fading, the forest cloaked in a darkness that felt alive. Sarah and I lay in our tent, the canvas walls thin against the night, our pistols and my rifle within reach, a precaution after reading about a camper's murder in California. Emma slept 2 feet away, Guts curled beside her, his fearless presence a shield, but sleep wouldn't come. The forest was too quiet, the usual hum of nocturnal life absent, replaced by a silence that pressed against my ears. Then it came, footsteps, heavy, deliberate, circling the clearing. Not the skitter of a raccoon or the rustle of a deer, but something bigger, something that moved with purpose. Sarah's hand found mine, her grip tight. "Do you hear that?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. I nodded, my heart pounding, straining to track the sound. The steps were slow, crunching, leaves snapping twigs just beyond the fire's light. Guts didn't stir, his snores steady, but Leah in our tent lifted her head, her ears twitching, a low whine escaping her throat. I grabbed my pistol, my fingers cold, and unzipped the tent, peering into the blackness. The flashlight's beam swept the trees, catching nothing but trunks and shadows. The footsteps stopped, the silence rushing back heavier now. "It's probably elk," I said, my voice low, but the words felt like a lie. We stayed awake, listening, the night stretching endless. No more steps came, but the feeling lingered. Something was out there, watching, waiting. By dawn, exhaustion won, and I convinced myself it was nothing, just the forest playing tricks. Morning brought sunlight, weak through the pines, but the unease clung to us like damp clothes. We walked down the road, Emma skipping ahead, Guts and Leah bounding through the underbrush, their energy a relief after the night's tension. 300 feet from camp, I spotted a rusted gatepost, overgrown with vines, marking an abandoned road. A flash of blue caught my eye. Fabric, maybe? And before I could call out, Guts tore down the path, his ears flat, his speed alarming. My heart lurched. Another camper? I imagined him startling a family, or worse, getting shot. Guts. I shouted, sprinting after him, Sarah and Emma behind me. He stopped 20 feet in, his body rigid, staring at a clearing. I caught up, breathless, and called out, "Anyone there? Sorry about the dog." Silence answered, thick and wrong. The clearing was a graveyard of gear, a tent shredded like paper, a cooler crushed flat, a propane burner twisted, blankets torn, a folding table splintered. Claw marks, deep, jagged, scarred every surface, too large for a bear, too precise. For chaos, my stomach churned. Who left this? We circled the wreckage, Emma clinging to Sarah's hand, Leah pressing against my leg, her hackles raised. "Animals?" Sarah asked, her voice thin. "Maybe," I said, but the propane tank, flattened like a soda can, mocked the idea. No, animal did this. Someone had fled, leaving everything, and something had destroyed it. We returned to camp. The blue fabric, a torn sleeping bag, burned into my mind, a warning I couldn't read. The afternoon sun did little to lift the chill. Emma and I played bocce ball, her laughter a fragile shield, while Sarah wandered 70 feet north out of sight to relieve herself. Guts lay by Emma, his eyes half closed, but Leah stayed close, her usual boldness gone. Then, Guts bolted, a black blur racing toward Sarah, his speed unnatural, uncalled. My heart stopped. Leah, who always led the pack, didn't follow. She pressed against Emma, her fur bristling, her eyes wide. In 7 years, I'd never seen her like this, refusing to take point, guarding my daughter like a sentinel. I ran toward Sarah, drawing my pistol, my boots pounding the earth. She jogged toward me, her face pale, her eyes wide. "I felt it," she gasped, clutching my arm. Someone was watching. My hair stood up, and then Guts came. Guts had vanished into the forest, 100 feet deep, before I called him back. He returned, his ears alert, his gaze fixed on the trees. We searched for signs, broken branches, footprints, but found nothing. The the forest silent, mocking. "It's nothing," I said, my voice hollow. But Sarah's trembling hands told me. She didn't believe it, neither did I. Leah's refusal to leave Emma, Guts's charge, the destroyed camp, it all pointed to something we couldn't see, something close. We decided to stay one more night. Too late to pack, too far to drive, but we'd sleep together, the small tent abandoned. I rigged a makeshift alarm, tying a rope around the clearing, threading coins and keys from our truck into a mint can, a jingle to warn us. As I tied the last knot to a tree, my fingers brushed something rough, another rope, brown and frayed, half buried in bark. My breath caught. It was old, maybe a decade, tied at the same height, with rusted washers dangling like forgotten charms. Someone had done this before, had feared the same thing, had watched the same darkness. My pulse raced, the forest's silence a scream. Who were they? I saw the destroyed camp again, the claw marks, the haste of flight. Sarah's eyes met mine, her fear mirroring my own. That evening I made Sarah and Emma wait in the truck. I loaded my .45, the metal cold, and fired a clip into the dirt, the shots echoing through the trees, a warning to whatever lurked. "They know we're armed," I told them, my voice steady for their sake. "They know we have Guts and Leah. We're safe." We crowded into the tent, the dogs between us, their warmth a fragile shield. Guts and Leah slept, their ears still, the coin alarm silent. The night passed without sound, but I didn't sleep. My eyes on the tent zipper, my hand on the pistol. Dawn broke, gray and cold, and we packed in silence, the forest watching. We left the clearing behind, the truck's engine a lifeline, Guts and Leah alert in the back. The road stretched endless, but we were alive, untouched. Months later, I watched a missing 411 documentary, my blood freezing as the map showed clusters of vanishings near Mount Jefferson, our campsite at their heart. The destroyed camp, the footsteps, the rope. Had someone else stood where we did, felt the same eyes? We've camped since. The Northwest's beauty calling, but never there, never that clearing. Guts and Leah still guard us, their instincts sharper than mine. But at night, when the fire dies and the forest falls silent, I hear those footsteps, see those claw marks, and wonder what we escaped and what might still be waiting.